Okay. Good evening and welcome. My name is Gerald Muller. I'm the planning board attorney. I'm starting the hearing because the officers have not been appointed yet for this year. That's going to occur later on during this session, I expect. But I'm going to read the opening statement. This is a regular meeting of the Princeton Planning Board on Thursday, January 8, 2026. Pursuant to Section 13 of the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of the time and place of this meeting has been given by prominently posting the resolution of regularly scheduled meetings of the Planning Board of Princeton for February 2025 through January 2026. A copy was filed with the clerk of Princeton on January 8, 2024. Legal notice of the adoption of said resolution was published in the January 17, 2025 edition of the Princeton Packet. Notice of this meeting also has been posted on the municipal website, www.princetonnj.gov/calendar. Notice that all regular and special meetings of the Princeton Planning Board will be held electronically via Zoom, was transmitted to the Princeton Packet and the Times, and was filed with the clerk of Princeton on Tuesday, January 17, 2023. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. Inappropriate public comment containing obscenity, hate speech, or related to matters not before the board will be muted. The first item on the agenda is the appointment of a chair and vice chair. Do I hear any nominations?
I think Justin needs to call the roll first, does he not?
I'm sorry, yes.
Yep. Thank you. Mr. Bodenheimer? Councilman Cohen?
Here.
Mayor Frida?
Here.
Mr. McGowan?
Here.
Ms. Nuka?
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Here.
Ms. Perlmutter?
Well, I'm here, but unfortunately my video is not. And I can't seem to get it working again. I promise I will have it fixed by the next meeting. I was hoping it would work tonight, but it's not.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Ms. Wilson Anderson?
Here.
And Ms. Curry Wilson?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Justin. The first item on the agenda is the appointment, election actually, of chair and vice chair. Do I hear any nominations for the chair position?
Well, I guess on behalf of the nominating committee, that we nominated Louise Wilson as chair.
Okay.
And we want to do we want to do both right now too?
I'm sorry, say again, Alvin.
Or do you want vice chair and vice chair? Or do you want to vote on them separately?
We'll vote on separately. Okay.
And then for Louise Wilson for chair.
Thank you. Do I hear any other nominations?
Second. Oops. No.
Okay. Do I hear any other nominations for chair? If the only person nominated is Ms. Wilson, may we have a vote on whether you want to have her as the chair? Justin, can you do the roll call?
Certainly. Councilman Cohen?
Yes.
Mayor Frida?
Yes.
Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Ms. Nuka?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Ms. Perlmutter?
Yes.
Should I call one of the alternates instead of Louise, Jerry?
Yeah, I think so. Right.
Okay, will do. Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
And Ms. Wilson Anderson?
Yes.
Motion carries. Ms. Curry Wilson is the chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Passing the figurative baton on to Ms. Wilson for handling the rest of the meeting.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I really do appreciate the vote. I appreciate the confidence. It is, truly a privilege and an honor to serve as the chair of this board, which I think is a really good planning board. So just a point of order, should we administer the oaths of office before we vote on another officer position? I didn't I didn't want to flag that, but I think probably would be a good idea to do that right now.
Who are have to be reappointed?
Jack
Mr.
Taylor
Taylor.
is being reappointed, and I guess that our Class 1 and Class 3 members, Mayor Frida, Councilman Cohen, do not need to be sworn in, or do they?
They usually are sworn in at the.
Okay, so those three then, I think.
Okay. So Jack, it would just be you. If you could raise your right hand.
Oh.
Do you, and Justin, do you have the oath of office?
If you give me 1 second, I could find it. My apologies.
Okay, no problem.
While Justin's looking, I'll just mention, if anyone is deciphering the writing on my mug, which says beer and wine garden, I'm drinking chamomile tea. It's just a nice mug.
Thank you for the clarification.
Justin, let me see if I can find it while you're looking.
Here, I'm emailing it over right now. I have it. Jerry, I just sent it to you. Jerry, I'm not sure if you heard, but I just sent it to you.
Yeah, I just heard it. Let me pick it up on my phone. Oh, here it is. Yeah. If you could raise your right hand, Jack, I'm sorry you probably had it raised the whole time. I,
Aye.
and then your full name.
Jack Taylor, John David Taylor.
Okay, and then I'll read and you repeat after me. Sincerely profess and swear that I do and will, go ahead.
Sincerely profess and swear
That I do and will be truly faithful,
that I do and will be completely faithful,
bear true, bear true faith and allegiance
bear truth, faith, and allegiance
to the government established in this state
to the government established in this state
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
I do solemnly swear
I solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I would faithfully, impartially, and justly
that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly
perform the duties of the office of
perform the duties of the office of
Princeton Planning Board Class 4 member
Princeton Planning Board member
according to the best of my ability and understanding.
according to the best of my ability. And what finally?
Understanding.
And understanding.
Okay. I thank
And
you
just
very-
to clarify, my understanding is that Mr. Taylor's taking the oath to be reappointed as alternate 2,
I'm sorry.
not a
Okay.
Class 4 member.
He just said member, so I think it's fine the way it is.
Hmm.
Okay, good. But thank you.
I hope and trust one day he will be a Class 4 member, but at this point, he is alternate.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Then thanks everybody for that, and let's hear from the nominations committee about their nominee for vice chair.
The nominations committee is recommending that Owen O'Donnell be appointed vice chair of the planning board.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations from other members of the board? I'm hearing none. Would someone like to move Owen O'Donnell as vice chair?
May I second his nomination as vice chair?
I saw Councilman Cohen's hand go up to move it, and yes, Jack, you can second. And Justin, would you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Mayor Frida,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Nuka,
Yes.
Ms. Perlmutter,
Yes,
Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Anderson,
Yes.
and Chair Wilson.
Yes.
Motion
Thanks.
carries.
Thank you very
Excellent.
much. Thank you.
Owen. Next, we have several appointments. First, the appointment of planning board attorney. There were resolutions about all of these appointments in our packet or in the link that was sent by Justin last week. Would someone like to move this resolution appointing Jerry Muller at Muller and Bailey as planning board attorney?
Yeah, and the resolution itself says law offices of Gerald Muller, but it is Muller and Bailey. So,
Right, okay.
but no,
Sorry, that should be
no,
corrected.
you had it right, and yeah, right.
Okay.
I'm happy to make the
Um,
motion to, or sorry, Vice Chair O'Donnell, would you like to?
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm happy to make the motion to appoint Muller and Bailey as our counsel for the planning board.
And I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Nuka. Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. Call the roll, please, Justin.
Certainly. Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Mayor Frida,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Nuka,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Perlmutter,
yes,
Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
and Chair Curry Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, and I appreciate the vote of confidence.
Absolutely. Good to have you back, Jerry.
Good to be here.
And next up, we have appointment of special counsel. That is Mariziti Falcon, Joe Mariziti's firm. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. McGowan. And a second?
From me.
Thanks, Councilman Cohen. Justin?
Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Mayor Frida,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Nuka,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Perlmutter,
yes,
Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
and Chair Curry Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And next up, appointment of redevelopment council. Once again, Joe Mariziti and Mariziti and Falcon. Do I have a motion to approve that resolution?
I will move this motion.
Owen, and a second?
Second.
Let's see. I think I heard
Give it to
Mark
Mark.
Frida and saw David.
Dave can have it. David's got it. David's got it.
A little cognitive dissonance there. Okay, seconded by Mr. Cohen. Justin, please call the roll.
Certainly. Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Mayor Frida,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Nuka,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Perlmutter,
yes,
Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
and Chair Curry Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thanks. And finally, in terms of appointments, the appointment of planning board secretary, Deidre Battle. As Justin mentioned, unfortunately, Deidre's not able to be here tonight because of a family emergency, but she'll be here going forward, and it'll be nice to have her in that officially in that chair. I'm sure you'll appreciate it too, Justin. Is there a motion to appoint Deidre Battle planning board secretary?
So moved.
Okay, thanks, David Cohen. And a second?
Second.
Thanks, Alvin. Call the roll, please, Justin.
Certainly. Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Mayor Frida,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Nuka,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Perlmutter,
yes,
Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
and Chair Curry Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next up, we have a couple of resolutions. The first is about special meetings. I don't think we are not at this time scheduling any special meetings, but this relates to noticing, et cetera, for special meetings. Would someone like to move adoption of this resolution?
Yeah, so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Second?
I second.
Thanks, Ms. Nuka. Justin?
Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Mayor Frida,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Nuka,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Perlmutter,
Yes,
Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
and Chair Curry Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And finally, the 2026 and through January 2027 calendar. I'll just note, we all got copies of this, of the calendar, or maybe a link to it, to the resolution that has all the calendar dates. There's an asterisk next to each month where, for whatever reason, usually having to do with holidays, the schedule is something other than first and third Thursdays. So just be on the lookout for that. Would someone like to move the calendar?
I'm happy to move the calendar.
Thank you, Pallavi. And is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Owen. Justin, call the roll, please.
Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Mayor Frida,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Ms. Nuka,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Ms. Perlmutter,
yes,
Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
and Chair Curry Wilson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Next up, we have announcements. Any announcements from staff or board members? Justin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have two announcements. The first one is that you may have realized by now, Ms. Capizzoli, her name was not called during the roll call, Julie Capizzoli. She decided after many years on the planning board as a Class 2 member that she was going to step down from that, as well as the chair of the HPC. So she's still going to be on the HPC for at least another year, but is stepping down late in the year. She let us know. So we'll be looking to fill that Class 2 position. That is the position under the municipal land use law that is an official of the municipality. So it might take a little bit of time to fill that seat.
Understood.
Yep.
Well,
Mhm.
I, for one, am really going to miss having Julie on the board, and I know others share that sentiment. She is wise and very experienced, very knowledgeable, and she'll be missed. But turnover is, almost always a good thing. So we'll welcome our new Class 2 member whenever they're appointed and ready to be sworn in.
Certainly, yep. And I would just second that. I mean, Ms. Capizzoli did so much work for the municipality, particularly behind the scenes with her HPC chair position, and she has been wonderful to work with. And now my lights turn off. And just the other announcement that I had that it reminded me when we were talking about the noticing and the special meetings and the calendar, there was a new state law last year, or a modification to the state law regarding noticing for board meetings. And we are on that. We're working with the clerk's office by, I believe there's an end of March deadline to get a system up and running where essentially we upload noticing on the municipality's behalf. For things like redevelopment plans or just other things that we have to notice for online rather than in newspapers, physical newspapers. So we will be working on setting that up.
Oh, that's good news. Well,
Yep.
I think it is. I hope it's not, I hope it doesn't represent any kind of difficulty from your perspective, but it does seem like a much better way to make sure people have access to the information than in tiny, tiny print on page whatever of a newspaper.
The newspaper is even available, is even being published.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, great. And I assume that we do not have any subcommittee reports tonight? No. Okay. We have 4 sets of minutes. The first is from April 3rd, 2025. Any questions, edits, comments? And if not, would someone like to move the April 3rd minutes?
So moved.
Thanks, Alvin. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Jack. Justin, did you call? Oh, with minutes, we can, I'm sorry, just up or down, right? I mean, voice vote.
Yep.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The minutes of April 17, 2025. Questions? Edits? Motion?
I'll move.
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Pallavi. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Minutes of June 25th, 2025. Questions, edits? And if there are none,
Just for the record, I wasn't here, so. I wasn't
okay.
there.
And so, yeah, it's assumed if you're absent, then you'll be marked as abstaining, is my understanding. So that's why I don't call for abstentions. Just a yes or no. Okay. So, I'm sorry, did we get a motion? Or did we get a motion?
No, there was no motion yet. I'll move them.
All right. And who would like to second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Mr. O'Donnell, seconded by Mr. Cohen. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. And finally, October 9th, 2025. We are catching up. Questions, edits? And if not, would someone move? Oh, Mr. Lesko.
Yeah, I just want to add, there were a few absences on this, so I just wanted to read those out just so, not to make a motion. And that would be Mayor Frida, Ms. Nuka, and Ms. Perlmutter for this one.
Okay. Is there a motion on the October 9th minutes then?
I move October 9 be approved.
Thanks, Mr. Taylor. And a second?
Second.
Thanks, Alvin McGowan. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next up, we have a concept review, and I am recused from this because I chair the board of the New Jersey Conservation Foundation, which owns a property immediately to the east of this property. So with that, I would like to hand the gavel virtually over to Vice Chair Owen O'Donnell and ask to be moved to the attendees room, please.
Okay. Thank you, Louise. As Louise mentioned, this is a concept review. Charles and Amelia DeSanto at 461 Mount Lucas Road, Block 4301, Lot 12. It's in the zone R2T area, file number P2424-600C. I just want to point out that this is an informal hearing. No formal action will be taken. There will be no vote taken on this. And just a reminder that we don't do straw polls on concept reviews, just in case that issue comes up, and that board comments are not binding if and when this application should come up to the full board for an actual application review. Jerry, are we Do we have proof of notice?
Yeah, you don't have to have notice for
Okay.
concept review. Owen, do you want to comment on whether public comment will be permitted?
Yes, we will have public comment on this if anyone wants to weigh in. But again, this is not a formal hearing. Thank you. Thank you for that, Jerry. Justin.
Yes, and I just want to clarify, while there's no requirement for certified mail, we often ask applicants to do that. A pretty regular mail, at least. And I see Mr. Kennedy nodding his head. So I believe they did that to the neighbors in the area.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Yeah.
Okay. And Alvin?
Yeah, I just have a question on what we're deciding or not deciding. Do we have to make a decision whether there's raised judicata?
Yeah.
Because if there is, that sort of ends this whole thing.
I
Even if
turn this over
it
to
is a
Justin.
concept
I'll turn
review?
that question over to Justin.
Yeah. So I think tonight is a concept review. So like we just said, there's no binding comments. There's no decisions being made. But that being said, as you saw in our joint memo, that doctrine of res judicata did come up. And that's something that the board would have to make at a full hearing. So I think whatever feedback you could give to the applicant tonight, I think would be very helpful. Because that's ultimately something that, I can't rule on that. Jerry can't rule on that. If an application were to come through, the board would have to make that decision. And I think part of tonight's hearing, and we'll hear from Mr. Kennedy in a minute, I'm sure he'll cover this, is frankly if it's worth their time to apply. So does that answer enough, Alvin?
I think
And you're
so.
on mute. Yeah, I anticipated that question coming up, and I see Mr. Taylor laughing, and I see Freddie's hand up with the number of people that we have with law degrees on this board. So,
Ready?
Yeah, I raised this before, so I just want to make it very clear, Gary, I'm sure you agree with this, that just by hearing this, we are not waiving res judicata. Just by hearing this, we're not agreeing that,
Absolutely not. And the board can certainly provide whatever feedback it wants now. And then if it appears that there are real problems, but the applicant wants to go forward, then go forward in the application, and the board would decide that at the outset of the application.
Okay, I just want to make
Yeah,
sure that's
yeah.
good.
Thank you for asking that question, Freddie. Okay, Justin, would you like to, or is Nathan going to take the lead on this?
Yeah, I believe I'll be taking the lead on the presentation, and Justin will also be available to answer questions on the background of the application, as well as to answer any other questions that might come up that would be more under his purview. So I guess I'll take it, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So do I need to be sworn in?
No, this is informal, so you don't need.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Mueller, and good evening, members of the board and members of the public, any who are out there. I'm going to share my screen. Entire screen. Okay, and is that up for everybody?
There we go. Yes, we can see it now.
Okay. And do we need to mark this as an exhibit?
Although it's an informal hearing, I think, and what we've done before is we've actually marked as exhibits documents or identified them if there's been a submission, so that if somebody goes back to the concept review and the record, they'll know what's being referred to when you're talking about a document. So yeah, is this part of the submission?
No, this is our own.
Okay, then let's mark it.
Okay.
We'll mark it as PB1.
Okay. I just realized I'm going to have to stop my share real quick, and then I'll bring it back in a second. I'm just going to do the window, and I hope this works. Okay, and everybody is still just seeing the map?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, very good. This is Exhibit PB1. This is an overhead image from the New Jersey NJ Parcel Explorer website, prepared by Rowan University. And most of what I'm about to discuss comes from the joint memo prepared by Derek Bridger, Justin Lesko, Jim Purcell, and myself. That's dated January 5th, 2026. As has already been noted, the subject property is identified as 461 Mount Lucas Road, Block 4301, Lot 12, in the municipal tax records. And it is zoned to the R2 zone of the former township, and all zones in this particular area of the municipality are from the former township. So just getting that on the record, so I don't have to keep repeating that phrase from the former township. 461 Mount Lucas is located on the east side of Mount Lucas Road, as you can see, and is largely wooded. The applicant's home is slightly north of the center of the lot. There are farm buildings and decks to the rear of the house and a gravel driveway off of Mount Lucas Road, as you can see from the overhead image. You have the house, farm, and decks in the rear, and then there's a gravel driveway. You can't really see it even if I zoom in, but it's just south of where the house is located. Parts of the house do date back to 1890, according to our tax records. However, the property is not, let me repeat that, is not located within a local, state, or national historic district. To the west of the subject property, across Mount Lucas Road, are residential properties in the RA and R2 zones. Just south of 461 Mount Lucas is a residential property that is located in the RA zone. There is a multifamily building to the east. It does not share a common boundary with the subject property. It just shares a corner, but not an actual property line with 461 Mount Lucas property. There's also a wooded area owned by, as Chair Wilson had indicated before she recused herself, it is owned by the New Jersey Conservation Foundation, and that's located both due east and a little bit to the southeast as well. There is a New Jersey American Water property with a water tower to the north. You can see the water tower, that circular structure. There's also a shared use path on the southern portion of that property along the boundary, the property boundary with the 461 Mount Lucas property. And that is subject to an easement. I'll note that for everyone.
Nathan, is that on the subject property, or is it on the property of the water company?
My understanding is that it is located on the NJAW property. I will say that I have not looked at the records or the survey to see if that is the case. But my understanding from our land use engineer is that it's located on the that property to the north.
Okay, thank you.
So turning now to what's before the board this evening, the applicants have submitted a set of concepts with the aim of subdividing the property into 2 lots. Chairman O'Donnell already mentioned a couple of the points that I was going to make already. I'll just quickly reiterate those. First, no straw polls of the board members are permitted. I don't think that would have been an issue anyway, but just to reiterate that. And then second, the board's comments are not binding. And the purpose of the concept review is to provide a forum for board members to provide any and all of their feedback to the applicant. And that includes on the concept of res judicata, which I'll get to in a moment. The critical wrinkle for all of these subdivision concepts is that in 2015, this board did deny an application for a subdivision that required a variance to permit a lot size of 0.996 acres for one of the proposed lots where 1.5 acres is required. The board denied the subdivision application as it found that the applicant had not demonstrated that the public would benefit from the granting of a lot size variance to allow for that subdivision. And then quoting directly from the 2015 findings of fact, which stated, quote, the applicants failed to demonstrate to the board why dividing the existing lot in two, with one of the lots being only 66.5%, 7% of the lot area required by the zoning ordinance would be a better arrangement than leaving the existing lot unsubdivided. The board acknowledged that the proposed lot 12.01, that would be that would have been the southern lot, that would have been undersized, would be similar in size to the existing lots on the east side of Mount Lucas. This factor alone is not a public benefit, end quote. Because of that previous denial, the board must consider the legal principle of res judicata, where the same relief that was previously sought and denied cannot be sought a second time. As this is a concept review, as has already been discussed, the board does not need to make a determination of whether res judicata applies, but should consider it in their discussion of the applicant's concept. Essentially, it's a guide for the board, something for the board to think about and to help guide the discussion, as it is an important point for any application for this subdivision that would come before the board. As a guide, we had provided a list of items in our January 6th memo. That a list of items that must be demonstrated for res judicata to be applicable, according to the Cox book on land use administration. I'll note before I go into that list, and it is in our memo, if anybody has that pulled up and wants to follow along. But I will just note that the Cox book is a useful guide, but because it is a legal concept and a legal principle, we are going to defer to Mr. Mueller and his legal expertise on the legal, the legal doctrine, and using the board using that for this for any application that might appear for this subdivision. So going through that list of items, first, the second application is substantially similar to the first. Two, the same parties or their privies are involved. There must be no substantial change in the application itself or conditions surrounding the property. Four, there must have been an adjudication on the merits of the case. And five, both applications must involve the same cause of action. The same applicants for the 2015 subdivision, which was denied on the merits, are involved in this case. As this is a concept review of possible proposals, the board and the applicant should focus their considerations on if the proposals are substantially similar to the 2015 proposal, and if there are changed conditions around the property. The applicant needs to demonstrate how possible concepts are not substantially similar, how the application itself is substantially different, and or how the conditions surrounding the property are different. It is noted that res judicata has been found to apply in cases where the nonconformity of the requested variance relief is greater than what was originally denied. So I'm not going to go into the actual concepts themselves that have been provided to the board. I'm going to leave that to the applicant's professionals and also reserve additional comments until after their presentation. There is, though, one last comment that I do want to mention. Section T10B-182 of the Princeton Code regarding subdivision design standards does require side lot lines to be at right angles or radial to street lines, insofar as is practicable. So the board should consider that requirement, as the dividing lot line is not entirely radial to the street line for the 2025 proposal concept, the size balanced lots concept, or the shared driveway option concept that the applicant's professionals will be presenting in just a moment. So in that regard, the applicant would need to discuss justifications for not using right angles or radial lines, because again, that is a design standard, and it's a design standard because we want to have lots that make sense. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I will turn it back to you to move this forward.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you for that summary. Are there any other comments from members of the staff or professional staff, or are there any questions from the board? Freddie?
If I may, I just like to make a couple of comments on the res judicata point, because that's
Please, Jerry.
clearly an important issue. Of the 5 points that Cox has on the second page of the staff memo, the fifth one is really irrelevant, which says both applications must involve the same cause of action. In the context of a land use application and then a second land use application, you're not talking about causes of action. And that standard applies in other res judicata situations. And then as to number 4, there's must adjudication on the merits. The fact that there was a decision by the board, a substantive decision, that's enough to make it, that's an adjudication on the merits, as opposed to a denial, say, by the board that where the applicant has failed to prosecute an application. And I think the key issue here is going to be the issue of that's in the case law, which is can you file and prosecute successfully an application when the level of nonconformity is the same, or as here is even been exacerbated? And I'm sure Mr. Kennedy is going to address that, and I think it's going to be a key issue on the res judicata point for the board.
Okay. Thank you, Jerry.
Okay.
David?
Yeah, I have a question about both that last point, and it was something that Nathan mentioned in his report. This idea of the conformity being greater, not the nonconformity being greater. Some of the, or at least one of the options that's before us tonight, has instead of one conforming lot and another sort of drastically undersized lot. If you had 2 undersized lots, but that were closer to being conforming, is that legally a greater degree of nonconformity because there are 2 variances, or is it? How do you decide whether that's greater or lesser degree of nonconformity?
Yeah, I think it would be within the board's purview to make the judgment in the situation you described, where you have originally one lot which was conforming, another was substantially non-conforming, and the second which have 2 non-conforming, but they're coming pretty close to conformity. I think a board could consider that in terms of the res judicata situation.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's a very good question.
Okay. Any other questions regarding this concept or anything else that Nathan has laid out before us? Okay, not seeing any. Mr. Kennedy, welcome. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Ryan Kennedy from the office of Stevens and Lee here for the applicants, who I believe are in the waiting room under the name Chuck. So if it's possible to bring them over as well, we'll get some testimony from them. And while that's happening, I'll just echo everything that you've heard. First, to thank you for hearing us tonight. Also, thank you to your team, as always, one, for encouraging and having these types of concept reviews. It's not something that it's in the MLUL, but it's not something that every town encourages, and it is very a beneficial process when we have the opportunity to get feedback prior to investment in an application. We understand it's not binding. Certainly will not push for any kind of straw polls, but again, to get that feedback prior to a larger investment is quite important, and we're very much appreciative of the opportunity to do that. As you heard, this is a concept review for a potential subdivision for a oversized lot in the former township's R2 zone, where 1.5 acres is required. There's about 2.5 here. In 2015, the applicants did bring a application that was different, and I think the focus of tonight is whether what we're proposing potentially, and some of the options are substantially different to bring forward. And that's largely a focus of the feedback we're looking for this evening, as well as some, because we'll call them alternatives, some of which do require further deviations from at least one of the township's design guidelines, as Mr. Henderson had noted, as Mr. Foote had noted, apologies, that the lot lines be radial or at kind of right angles. And one of the things that has changed since 2015 essentially is the location and makeup of this lot in terms of trees. And what effort was made here, as was not in 2015, is to recognize and follow and assign the treed or open space areas to each lot in ways that make sense and do not create orphaned, I want to say, unusable areas. And in that way, we think that the plans are quite different. And beyond just the percentages of change and the physically different lot lines, which we do believe are meaningful, it's the reason for it, and which is that, in 2015, and I know there's, let's say, at least we thought there might have been two. I too am sorry to see Ms. Capozzoli not here this evening, and wish her best. But one of the focuses, while it didn't make the resolution in 2015, we understand, was the impact on the trees on what would be the second lot. And there's both been changes to that, and we think a plan that recognizes and I'll use the word celebrates, that's probably not correct, but follows a tree line and assigns a cleared area and a wooded area that does have some cleared areas to a new lot. And the size of the home that would be built in that area is actually appropriately reduced by moving the lot line in that direction, which we believe very meaningfully, and we'll talk about the history of the existing home here, better shows and includes separation between, and we think a relatively important, not big H, but little h historic structure where there is some history, to create that separation between the two in a new lot that actually fits and is, for the neighborhood, actually quite large compared to the surrounding lots that are in the R2 zone. With that, brief summary, I'd like to have Chuck and Amelia introduce themselves briefly. I know it's not necessary to swear them in, but if they could just briefly introduce themselves and we can start our presentation. Chuck and Amelia?
That'd be fine. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan, and thank you to the board and its advisors for reviewing our concepts tonight and hopefully providing us with some usable feedback. And I guess in a very brief way, I'd just point out that Amelia and I have lived here in this property for over 25 years. The oldest part of the property that we restored and retained is actually dating back to 1874, but is the original Mount Lucas Schoolhouse that was relocated to this site in 1920 or so. And we've done some changes, made some changes to the property, but generally speaking, I would say they've been respectful and modest changes, in particular saving the barn, which is now our garage and workshop, and restoring the original home. I guess we don't have much more. We're obviously available to answer any detailed questions about what we've been thinking about this property, which we've been thinking about it for quite a while. And we love it very much. And hopefully we can find a way to make some further changes to it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, if it's all right, we have provided some exhibits. If it's okay for me to share my screen, I'll have Chuck and Amelia start taking us through, and then we'll switch over to our engineer and planner to finish up the concepts.
That would be fine. Thank you very much.
Hopefully that showed up for everyone. And I'll note this will be our one exhibit. It is 14 slides just for reference.
And we'll mark it electronically as A1.
All right. Thank you so much. So Chuck and Amelia, this I'll say.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kennedy, before you start, just for our records, this is the same as the one that you submitted a few days ago?
It is. I sent you a PDF. This is the
Yes,
PowerPoint version of it, but there are no changes.
Okay, thank you.
So Chuck and Amelia, if you could, on slide 2 here, this is a clip of the Princeton zoning map, and that's your property in outlined in red in the R2 zone in the former township?
That's correct.
All right. We'll start to talk about this as we get to the other slides, but can you just briefly describe, the zone you're in, the R2, is that kind of gerrymandered green zone, to your left, and then I suppose north, we could talk a little bit about the uses that are around you.
Yeah, so as we mentioned earlier, that we've been trying to solve this riddle for some time. One of the ways we could have solved it, in theory, would be to have expanded our lot up to 3 acres from 2.5, but because all the adjacent properties were either other uses or already undersized residential lots, we were unable to do that. There is you can see as Ryan pointed out, the road leading up to our property. Our property is really I think the only compliant lot that in the area in our neighborhood that meets the 1.5 acre minimum for that zone. I think there's not much more to say about this particular slide.
Okay. Moving to the next one, in yellow, that's the proximate proposed subdivision, and your home outlined in yellow with the, I guess, green pin through part of it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
And I suppose this one will help the board see and kind of understand, I guess, to the north, that white disc, that's New Jersey American's water property.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
And unfortunately, that's the one. There was a question before, and I think when we show one of our plans later, that easement is off property and kind of constrains New Jersey American's property. That access easement's not on your property; that's on theirs.
I'm sorry, Ryan. What the question is regarding the adjacent property to the east?
So the question about the New Jersey American property, there was a note about a access easement. I just wanted you to confirm that that's on the New Jersey American property and not on yours.
I believe it's mostly on the path itself is for sure on the adjacent property. The right of way might abut our property on that north side.
And then moving from there, I guess clockwise, the next property that touches yours, that's the preserved property that, fortunately or unfortunately, probably fortunately, could not be annexed to yours either.
Yeah.
You couldn't get property from it. Yeah.
And that was part of the ultimate arrangement when Copperwood was developed, that they would concentrate that building on I guess, the northeast corner of our adjacency and leave the wooded area to the back as conserved land.
And then going further down Mount Lucas Road, you've got single family homes in undersized lots at that point.
Correct. Okay. And for what it's worth, the Stewart Road, East Stewart Road extension to the top of the slide is also smaller lots. That was part of a development where I believe they set aside some of that land to the west as preserved land as well.
Next, the slide 4 is an aerial photo. We talk a little bit about not the history. We've got a slide for that, but the types of buildings that you've got in your home and the arrangement of them that lead to.
This is actually an interesting slide because relative to in the summer it looks like a lot more green, but that's a winter photograph, and you can see the driveway and parking area in front of the old barn, which is at the bottom corner. That relatively large historic structure that was restored again when we first bought the property, and then the other building is our home on the above that, which as I mentioned we had made a couple of additions to over the years.
But I would like to point out that we made the additions behind the building so that when you are driving down Mount Lucas Road, you can still see the original schoolhouse. And that was very important to us to keep that structure intact.
That actually shows up, I think, in the next slide pretty well.
And so looking at the property to the right, the New Jersey American property, you can actually, I think, see in this photo where that access path
That's right.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
is. And I'll note both what that is not available necessarily for expansion. If it were, though, it may not help our situation. You know, the without, I guess, compromising the ability to keep, as we'll see in future slides, this home in place. You know, as designed in all of the scenarios, the compliant or larger of the lots is the one where the existing house is, not because it necessarily wants to be bigger, but because of the placement of that lot. And if you were to find more land on the New Jersey American side, which again isn't necessarily available, we would end up with even a larger lot on one side, and it would not essentially help the new lot to be created unless we were to encourage removal of the existing historic structures. If you could also maybe take a few moments, a lot has happened in 10 years. Talk about some of the, again, there was a lot of discussion about trees in the 2015 application. Talk about what has changed. I know there's been some areas where maybe it's filled out more, and unfortunately, just with ash trees or loss of trees, there's been some change. Could you talk a bit about that? I know it doesn't quite show in the photo, but I know there's been some differences between 2015 and today.
Right. I mean, one thing that we did after the 2015 experience was have the property surveyed. All the trees were tagged and surveyed, which was useful in respects that we can talk about later. But I would say there's a few things that have changed. Is that sadly a lot of trees in Princeton are dying, and we've had a lot of trees fall on their own. We've taken down the minimum number of trees in the time we've been here, only when they've threatened the building or when they've been determined to be dead. The only tree that I would say one significant tree, an ash tree that fell on the property, we managed to salvage and mill into material to build one of the addition phases that we have in the back of the house. So we haven't, we have basically not changed the wooded nature of the property, except that it's changing on its own. The piece of property that we've talked about potentially subdividing off has a lot of small dead and dying trees. It's not a very healthy wooded area, and that's been confirmed by our tree survey by the town arborist who's visited here, as well as some other tree people that have looked at the property.
Moving to slide 5, this is a updated, I'll just call it, survey that shows the existing property, but maybe we'll just again talk through. This is whoops, apologies. I clicked instead of pointed. It is my cursor showing up on the screen, Chuck?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the existing home and then that barn you were talking about is to the rear of the property.
That's right.
Correct.
And I think we'll show it better on another slide, but this line here is kind of that approximate line of the more wooded area and the more cleared areas of the lots.
That's right. I mean, this property historically was a farm, as I understand it, and the part of the property that is to the south that's got trees on it at some point was a piece of farmland. So those trees are more or less younger trees in that respect, but obviously hasn't been a farm for a long time. The only other thing I might point out, you can see where we have our garden, sort of opposite of the barn. That's a garden that the prior owner had initially developed as an organic garden, which
and we've continued.
that was made my wife happy because she's an avid gardener, and so we've kept that where it was and continue to use it as such, which has weighed in some respects to how we've been thinking about possibly subdividing or where the lines would be.
Now, this next slide, slide 6, this is not your intention, particularly because it would build something on top of where your current home is, but we wanted to show what the zoning provides for this property, so that kind of an as-of-right design could include both a significantly sized ADU as well as a 13,000 plus square foot home on the site.
Yeah, so I didn't mention that that I'm a restoration architect, and I don't do new construction developments, but I think I can interpret zoning zoning requirements well enough to think through what this lot could support. A lot this size, which, as I mentioned earlier, is one of the only compliant lots in that area. The way that the numbers work, and again, this is not something we would want to do or see. And it's honestly one of the things we're trying to avoid happen on a property this size. But you could put a very substantial home there, and if you could put a substantial home, you could then also put a substantial ADU.
And next, move to slide 7. Talk a little bit about this. A very interesting home and property that you've got. So maybe spend a minute talking about what, why probably benefit. Well, what's a positive about what's happened here and the bit of history in it, and why there's a reason to design around that existing building when the lots are being laid out.
Well, I think it goes back to, again, my experience and training in history saving buildings, and this was a building we wanted to save. Has its own charm. It's not an easy building to add on to, as it turned out. It was quite a complicated project, but as Amelia pointed out, what we intentionally designed the additions here so that the historic structure would still have a presence on the street that was consistent with its history, and try to keep the scale of the additions down, and let that little building still have its presence on the street. So this is just an old clip from when the building was a school, a one-room schoolhouse. And when we bought it, it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom cottage. And that 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom part is still pretty much the way it was.
Thank you. Now, if the Chairman, if the board has any questions for the applicants, I next would bring on our engineer and planner to kind of go through the plans. Certainly their applicant's not going anywhere, but I certainly pause if there's any questions for them or.
Surely, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. and Mrs. DeSanta? No, I'm not seeing any, so we can move on to your other expert.
Yep, thank you so much. I know, again, it's not a formal hearing. We have Jim Kamalik, who's our professional planner and engineer. If perhaps he's spoken for this board many times. I don't think we have to have him qualified, but maybe he just briefly remind the board of what his role is in a project like this as an introduction.
Sure, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Jim Kamalak, Kensho Resources, professional planner and professional engineer. And I've been working with the DeSantos and Mr. Kennedy on this 2-lot subdivision, and in specific, some of the details we'll talk about tonight as to the configuration of the lots, what's on the lot, and why we're crafting this orientation.
Great.
Thank you. So Jim, slide 8, we attempted to put both the 2015 and our I'll also call it our main 2025 concept on the same, plane, so we can, talk about the reasons why designs were shifted, and talk a little bit about the impact and of the reasoning for the thinking that we think is positive, and the actual physical differences. Jim, the 2015 design, that's the one that's outlined with the red dash line.
Right, that's correct. Yep.
All right, and blue is what we're proposing now,
Right.
essentially, correct? All right.
Yep.
And that green line, that's the natural wooded kind of tree edge approximately of what's shown. I mean, not what's shown here,
Yeah,
but
that's a consideration of the wood line, which I think as part of the prior application that was done by the DeSantos and some other parties previously, there was no tree survey, and I think that was a concern. Oh, what will the impacts to the trees be? Where are they? How does it respect the location of the trees? So here, um, you can see that green line highlights the general area of where the trees are, and then also importantly, down at the bottom of the page, there's that more open cleared area associated at the rear of the garden, which when you enter the site, that's really part and parcel of the main developed portion of the lot and the rear yard area. So that was maintained the majority of that in the context of the lot on the right, or lot 1202, which is 1.59 acres, to be maintained as part of that lot instead of that red line diagonally sort of traversing that open area and then cutting it off from the main lot. And I think the theme here is the applicants are looking to pay deference to the historically developed portion of the lot, where their existing home is, where the barn is, where the existing access driveway is, which is going to remain in the proposed condition. And then take a look at the new lot. How can that best fit and what makes most sense for a modest home, which was, their intention here for this lot. As you can see on the left-hand side, where we have an access driveway that's sort of on the left-hand side of the lot, similar to the access to the existing lot, which is also on the left-hand side of the lot that the existing home is on. And the location of that driveway was located appropriately to avoid tree impacts. So the apron was placed at that location and traverses to the rear. And then in the area of the less dense area of trees in the central portion of the lot is where we showed where a proposed dwelling could go in the center of this 0.9 acre lot, which again is slightly smaller than I think what was previously proposed, which was closer to an acre. Um, but it's still in the context of the size of lots in this same zone that are immediately to the left, for several lots as you go to the left of the subject property here.
Jim, if I could just pause for a second. I don't know if it's can't see on all the screens, but I believe Mr. Hood has his hand
Yes,
raised.
going
Mr. Chairman,
to ask
I
Hood
just
to
wanted to
hand raise.
recognize him before we got too
Yes.
far.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Chairman. Just a point of clarification, just for the sake of clarity for the board members. You have listed here the 0.905 acres. I just want to make that clear that the 0.905 is for the 2025 proposal.
Correct.
And the 0.996 is the number that would have been for the 2015 the denied 2015 subdivision application. So just wanted to clarify that point and make sure that that's clear for everybody, because that I was looking at it and getting a little confused myself. So just wanted to put that out there.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep, these are the proposed numbers. Yep.
Yep.
So this,
thank you.
so Jim, what we're looking at is the proposed subdivision, though with in red the 2015 overlaid on top of it. Is that maybe a
That's
good way to?
correct. Yes.
And if we could just talk a little bit though, in comparing the two, so it's about a 10% difference physically in the numbers between the about 0.9 and the just slightly under 1 acre from 2015.
Yes, that's correct.
And with the existing home located on the proposed lot 1202, essentially are thinking, not blocking so much, but ultimately being the existing development that we're looking to keep, that ultimately reduces the size of the home that could be built on the proposed new lot of 12.01.
Yeah, I mean, based on the theoretical FAR, that would reduce the size, a maximum size home.
And Princeton has a concept of proportional FAR for existing undersized lots, but a recent trend or practice for which we would consent that would not apply to a newly created undersized lot. So perhaps a further reduction in size of what a new construction could be from the 2015 proposal.
That's correct. Yes.
I'll also note again, so between we focused a bit of the reason of following the tree line and allocating the open space versus wooded space to the lots where they feel like to naturally belong. This arrangement also create perhaps a more appropriate or larger buffer between the historic portion of that existing home and where the lot line would be.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the side yard and the way that it buffers the historic portion of the home that we had talked about, we felt that this particular alignment would be most appropriate because it does provide some buffering from the driveway, creates a separation, and really at 0.9 acres in our view, it's more than sufficient area for a single family dwelling, especially in the context of the surrounding lots.
Yeah. Jim, can you also talk a little bit while we're on this slide about, I guess, your understanding of the nature of the angle of the lot line is designed? I know it's very clear that in the upcoming plans that we'll be showing the other options that they are not radial or perpendicular. Was there intent here to do that for this lot?
Well, I mean, obviously there was an intent or an attempt to do that. You can see that we are perpendicular there at the rear of the lot. But the reality is we have two lines that are not parallel. So, based upon that geometric constraint, we're not going to have a straight lot line that'll be, perpendicular to the rear and to the front. Again, this is a balancing of some buffering to the main home site on the right, with that historic element, number one. And then for sort of a realistic look at, okay, well, is this appropriate? I would just point out that the existing lot line to the left, where you have the red dashed line at the street, in the upper left-hand corner, that's not 90 degrees. That's about 100 degrees. Then if you look at the upper right-hand corner of the existing lot, that's not 90 degrees. That's 55 degrees. And actually, if you looked at the tax map and you looked at the side lot lines of the various lots as you go further to the left down Mount Lucas, they're all pretty much parallel to the blue line that we're showing you tonight. So we think that that's consistent also with the neighborhood, where in reality, when you're on the road and you view this theoretical point in space, you can't discern it. It's not viewable. But it is in keeping with the context of the neighborhood, and it's also dealing with these geometric complexities, which currently the two front lot lines where they adjoin the side are not radial or perpendicular either. So for those reasons, we do, see this as a unique condition, and we did what we could as practicable, quote unquote, but we feel it's appropriate.
Right now, in developing this, we also looked at some other options. Of course, this one is that same concept, but without the overlay on it. And I don't want to dwell on this, Jim, but if there's anything you want to point out here, obviously on the left, you conceptually laid out a potential home and stormwater features to show where they could possibly go in places where there'd be minimal or little removal of trees.
Yes, and then there's some privacy of the driveway relative to where the existing driveway is, on our larger lot, and then in the location where there's less trees. That's why it was located over there on the left, on the left side.
Moving to slide 10, this is just the bulk table here, but noting really that the only variance
Just
would
to
be
point out, yeah, that's notwithstanding the lot area here, everything else is fully conforming.
And sorry, just another question of clarification. So that is this table is specifically for what's being called the 2025 concept.
That is correct.
Right.
This is just the one where it's the 0.90. Well, there was a slight discrepancy I wanted to ask about as well. There's 0.905 on one page, and then on the previous slide, you had 0.904. So I just wanted to ask about why there was that difference. I know it's very slight, but was that just a
It could have
difference in
just
rounding,
been,
or
it just could have been rounding. There was no intentional difference there, so
okay,
it really was meant to be the same.
Okay, all right, thank you.
We also, in developing this, explored some other ways of looking at the site that may, for which we'd like some feedback from the board. So this one we're calling the balanced lot sizes that, create two lots that are, well, neither would be conforming, and two variances would be required. It would more balance, I suppose, the sizing between the lots so that they would all more mirror what's predominant in the neighborhood. Jim, anything you'd like to note on this?
No, just to say that, adding an angle point in that sideline, would result in a more radial type of sideline approaching the street. And then the lot area could be more distributed between the two lots. If this was a preference to the board, again, you can see that lot line is somewhat closer to the existing driveway and to the existing home. But this was prepared for the board to weigh in on and to provide some feedback relative to just a different orientation that could be feasible here.
Can you comment on why there is the kink in the dividing line?
Sorry.
Rather than going straight from the street to the rear lot line.
Just to be perpendicular to the rear as well. I mean, really just to have 90-degree angles at the rear lot line.
I mean, is that seen as being responsive to that design criterion that Nathan mentioned in his summary?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. If we move that lot line over, and then obviously this cleared area and this, it was mentioned, this organic garden that's been maintained over the years now would not be part of sort of the homestead property or the existing property. It would be part of the new lot. That's one of the negatives from the homeowner's perspective of where they spend their time in this, their outdoor gardening area. Now it's going to be on the new lot. That's why this was not preferred. And a negative from their standpoint. So we don't necessarily think that taking that much lot area away from the traditional home site on the right, is warranted. But again, we wanted to provide another look and just some other options for the board to weigh and see if there was some consensus.
And Jim, just so I understand that response to Mr. Cohen's first part of the question is the idea was, in spirit, was to have the top part of the lot line respect and be radial to that side, and then the bottom to be 90 degrees to the back
Right.
line to have that kind of uniformity. That whether that's technically the for such an interestingly shaped trapezoidal parallelogram kind of lot, that was the attempt was to respect that.
Right.
Freddie Perlmutter has her hand up. Freddie, you're on mute.
Are there any conservation areas on these lots themselves? And there was something about wetlands. Are there wetlands or wetland buffers? Because I know they said you should apply for one, a letter of interpretation, but it wasn't clear to me whether that was because they actually were something there to verify there's nothing.
There are no conservation easements on the lot, number one. There was there was an area on one of the state maps of a potential wetland area at the rear of the newly proposed subdivided lot. We've taken a look at that. It's in a highland upland area and it slopes down to the rear onto the adjacent property. So we don't see any evidence of that. And certainly, as part of the subdivision process and the condition of approval, we would get an LOI of an absence determination, just confirming that with DEP. But
whether you thought there was something there or you thought there was, you want confirmation there was nothing.
well, we're pretty confident that we have no issues with that, just based upon the lay of the land and the conditions and the vegetation and the topography. But certainly, as part of a condition of approval, we can have that verified with DEP at that point in time, just to give the board comfort.
I think it also might be a requirement of any building that goes in, and not just a matter of a condition that the board places. I think it would be something that, regardless of whether the board wanted it or not, I think it would be required anyway, is my understanding. I'm not in the engineering side, but I just wanted to, I believe that's the way that it works.
For sure, I think you've got that exactly right. I guess the point I think we try to make one is that at a concept stage we haven't made that investment fully yet, and our belief from looking at records and adjacent properties and everything to that effect is we don't expect it to impact the usability of that part of that lot from the proposed.
Yep.
But certainly would.
I was just trying to figure out whether or not you had reason to believe, you thought there was something there, or you just thought you'd go for an LOI and that's the end of it. I mean, that's fine.
So Jim, then slide 12, we have another thought here for the site that includes a couple of different features. One, an even more dutiful attempt to follow the tree line and allocate the cleared versus wooded areas from one lot, a lot line that's radial but closer to a driveway to better facilitate a shared driveway. And I think what we've called kind of a restriction or easement that would essentially ensure that no second driveway be built on the property. You want to take us through this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think you summarized it well. Starting at the rear of the lot, again, that would keep that open, cleared garden area as part of call it the homestead portion of the lot or the existing lot, and then basically jogging that side lot line up to the existing driveway to make it as radial as we can. But we would probably want to follow the existing driveway, which is not radial to the street. But again, it's just it's close. And then instead of having two driveway entrances, this concept would have a shared driveway entrance where the new people accessing from Mount Lucas would come down the existing driveway and then peel off to the new dwelling. And then we would have the option of say a 20 to 25 foot conservation easement behind the right-of-way line. So there would be even more because there is some vegetated wooded area within the right-of-way. And that would tend to keep an existing sort of wooded strip, which is what you see today. And it's rather overgrown with, some understory vines and things like that. But that would avoid an additional break in the vegetation along the front, which we saw could be an asset. I mean, it could be a desire and something that the applicant was willing to discuss and consider. Okay, so we have this basically consolidated access with one driveway, but then this irregular um, shape of the lot, which may not be uh, as in keeping with the ordinance with relatively simple side lot lines, so that may not be desirable. But this option also kept that open area to the rear, which they use now as part of the main lot. So this is a bit of a hybrid with one entrance.
Nathan?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. About the conservation easement along the frontage of lot 12 point, this proposed lot 12.01, why is it only being proposed for or thought of for this one as opposed to the other concepts? Because it seems like it might be a good thing for other concepts. So just curious about why is it only shown for this one?
I guess the main reason was because we felt like we were not penetrating it at all because we were using the shared driveway. So then the rest of the frontage, as it quote unquote would not be disturbed, we thought putting a landscape easement, maybe that would be a better label for it across the frontage, would go with this concept. But that doesn't mean on the other concept, aside from the driveway entrance, that couldn't be contemplated. So that is something that we can consider. But that's why it's on this one because we only had one penetration, the existing one.
Okay.
I'll
Thank you.
also note, and I think maybe to further respond to that it's something that could perhaps be applied to the other concepts. We viewed this element as fitting best on this one, but perhaps could be an element to any of the three pieces that we've put together if they had a shared driveway. This one was the most naturally indicative to that shared driveway, but conceivably, even with the other lot configurations, there could be a shared driveway, and that front tree line could be, permanently preserved, essentially, which was the intent of the application with showing it here.
Thank you. Alvin? Alvin, you're on mute. There you go.
In this shared driveway, is the garden preserved in this alternative?
No.
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's preserved with the existing lot to the right. Like it would stay with the larger lot, with the applicant's home and their outbuilding and the rest of their arrangement that they have currently.
Okay, Freddie?
Yeah, I'm still, I asked you about conservation areas before and you said there were none. I mean, a conservation area typically is a legal area set aside as conservation. I mean, it's a formal easement. It's not just, we put it on here but it doesn't affect anything else. We don't know whether it affects anything else or not. I mean, we'll take your word for it, but it should be on everything. And I'm assuming that you're not planning on putting some kind of conservation easement in the cleared area, because that's the only way that you could really preserve that, is some kind of agreement to keep it cleared. Otherwise, if it's all on this property, fine, you can do whatever you want. But if you put it, that part of it is on the other property, they can do whatever they want unless you have some kind of agreement that they can't. Or that allows her to come on and do her gardening there, even though it's on their property.
I'm not sure.
I'll say,
What
I'm
your
not sure.
question is, but I'm happy to answer it. It's just that there are no existing conservation easements on the lot, like currently, because we haven't done anything yet, number one. And we were just offering.
1 minute, it already exists, does it not?
No.
No, it doesn't.
Oh,
No,
you
this is
a conservation easement?
There's none currently. The suggestion is that in thinking about a shared driveway and the applicants thinking about the current, I'll call it streetscape, that we thought about essentially permanently dedicated through a new easement that front part of the new lot as being undevelopable to protect that tree line essentially and force the driveway to go elsewhere so that there would be less visual impact or change there. So it would be a new easement that we would permanently dedicate as part of this or even the other options.
And then what about the area that's cleared here that if you don't have a lot line like this, so part of it is on the other person's property, then they can do what they want with it, presumably.
Right, but the line delineates whose property is whose. So
on this one, but on the other ones, it did not. Part of the property, part of that garden.
Right, that's why this was not really preferred by the applicant because they would like to maintain that area of the rear yard that they currently use. But we were just throwing ideas out there.
Which of these is their, I don't know if we've seen all of them, which is their preferred?
The first one really is the one that we're most serious about here with the blue line.
And Mr. Perlmutter, to your point, I think that is one of the main reasons that drove the change from the 2015 plan. Yes, you're correct. In that 2015 plan, the new lot owner would have that cleared area. Some of it would be kind of outside of the building setback, actually, and something could be built there, and it would be kind of oddly positioned or feeling like it went with the other lot. And that a lot of that remedying that drove the changing in the lot line and the reallocation that we thought through in revisiting the property.
Pallavi, please.
Just going back to, if you could go back to that, the applicant's preferred division.
Yeah. This one here? Yeah, this is the preferred. Yes.
Okay. So the argument here is that this division will result in less tree loss than what was proposed in 2015?
Well, in 2015, I would say that I wasn't present, but from what I've heard from the applicants is that it was rather ambiguous because at the time a detailed tree survey had not been proposed when they applied for the application.
Okay.
And there was discussion at the board where the board, I think, were a little apprehensive of, well, how much tree removal will there be? Where are the trees? How big are they, for example? So since then they did a tree survey and
even in 2015, so I'm sorry to interrupt. Even in 2015, it was only a proposal to subdivide the lots, not a proposal to build anything yet.
Correct.
Which is the case
even
now,
the proposal is just to subdivide.
Right. But we're trying to fill in the blanks and give an understanding of all the different elements here. So that's why the house is located in the middle where the trees are less dense. And in actuality, many of the trees are 8 inches to 10 inches. They're successional, very young trees.
Right.
It's not old growth and very dense forest. It's a very, a lower quality.
I see. Okay.
And maybe just to piggyback on that, it's less that this design will necessarily, though the likely house placement will result, we think, in fewer trees being removed. It's less that the change in the lot line from 2015 results in less trees, but it logically follows a tree line, whereas 2015 ignored it and kind of cut through the middle of where the trees, creating this odd orphaned open space, cleared area that really shouldn't have been associated with the existing, with the new house. It should have been associated with the existing. So we corrected that and built a lot line that better follows, certainly in this concept and in the latter one, that better follows that existing tree line and respects it and chooses to split the properties based on that natural feature rather than just arbitrarily cutting through it.
Okay.
Councilman Cohen?
Yeah, I
was
just want to comment, having been on the board in 2015 and being present for that discussion. Not that I claim to have perfect recall of what it was 10 years ago. I think that the concern was tree loss. It wasn't how the lot lines related to the existing tree line. And Pallavi has keyed right in on the crucial issue, which is if we subdivide, no matter where the lot line goes, there's likely to be a lot of tree loss on the newly created lot. And to locate the house where there are a few trees, we all know that a heck of a lot of trees come down for construction access, regardless of how many are actually within the footprint of the house. So I sort of want to, I don't know how many more options there are to look at, but I think
That's it.
that, yeah, okay. Then I'd like to sort of start the deliberation a little bit and say, I think that it's very hard for me to imagine that this, which has, this is clearly more non-conforming because the small lot is even smaller than it was. I don't see how this option gets around res judicata because I think that this idea of following the tree line was not pertinent to the conversation in 2015, and I don't think it's really pertinent to any conversation we would have today. I personally feel like the option with the balanced lot sizes is the only one that both could be argued to be less non-conforming because the two lots, are closer to being conforming. So even though you need two variances, they're both a lot closer to being conforming. I think the regularity of the lot line is a virtue in relation to the design standard that Nathan talked about in his introduction. And I think that that's the version that is most likely to solve the res judicata issue and also be most desirable from a planning standpoint in terms of having the lot sizes be as close as they can to to the underlying zoning, which, by the way, I think we all agree is sort of not appropriate to the facts on the ground. And I think everyone's aware we're looking at overhauling the zoning. It seems quite possible to me that this area could be rezoned to be 1 acre lots. It feels unlikely that it'll be rezoned to be 0.75 acre lots, for example. So, this is pure speculation. I don't know exactly how the zoning overhaul is going to impact this neighborhood, but I think it would be very reasonable for it to create 1 acre lots, not reasonable to think it would create smaller lots than that. So having a subdivision here, which has one undersized lot that's actually under 1 acre, feels less likely to be conforming in some future zoning that I can imagine in the neighborhood.
Councilman Cohen, just let me thank you. That's exactly the type of feedback we hope to get at a concept review like this. Much appreciated. If I could ask, if it's possible, one follow-up question. If it were to be, and I know this is a legal issue, and I'm not going to look to debate it this evening. The case law from the early '60s about that making it more non-conforming. If just putting that aside, if that were to be resolved in a different way legally, would you feel the question before the board becomes: is this substantially different 2015 versus 25? I certainly heard you on the balance lot being substantially different factually. Do you have a thought?
I don't feel like this one is. I don't feel like this one is substantially different.
Thank you. I much appreciated. Thank you.
Mayor Frida?
Yeah, thanks.
From a common sense point of view, looking at the size of all the neighboring lots, I'm pretty content with slide 8. I mean, the required zoning is like the Witherspoon Jackson area. The required zoning versus what exists is totally different. So again, common sense and logic say to me, if they're going to give us a lot that is very similar to most of the existing lots south of this property and the lots across the street on Stewart, I, as one person, am pretty content with that thought.
Olive?
So I guess this is a question for Jerry. Is looking at this, there's not, between the 2015 proposal and the current preferred proposal, which is slide 9. Do I understand that correctly?
Correct.
Ryan? Okay.
Yeah. Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, there's not a huge difference, but the balanced lot sizes make sense. The straight line dividing the two lots makes sense. That will make for friendly neighbors. But is it different enough from 2015 so that we don't get into this legal loophole?
I think it would be a tough row to hoe to prevail on the raised judicata question with their preferred scheme, because clearly there's very little change from a subdivision application which has already been denied. That's the basic issue. And you still have the same thing. So I think it would be a tough case.
So then comparing 2015 to slide 12, which has the shared driveway, the conservation easement, would that be, that's clearly more different in my view. I think that's more of a departure from what had been considered in 2015.
That's true. Yeah.
And David?
Yeah, I also want to say, or want to remind the board, as noted in the staff report, that while this proposed dwelling that's shown on all of the varying options looks modest, with a nearly 1 acre or a 0.9 acre lot, there's like a 5,000 square foot house that can be sited on even on the smaller lot. And so I want to mention that really the deliberation that happened in 2015 was like, this is the ridge. It's an environmentally sensitive area. Anything that permits new development on this lot is sort of going against smart growth principles, where we want to have the growth be closer into town and away from environmentally sensitive areas. And I think that was really the guiding factor that controlled the decision of the board in 2015. I don't know that the board will feel the same today, but board members should comment on that as well, because while as I mentioned, I like the balanced lot subdivision from a planning standpoint, it still creates, more density up on the ridge here. It will create significant loss of trees, admittedly small trees, not old growth trees. It's not precious natural habitat, but those are the factors that went into that decision then. Was if we're creating a new building lot, we're adding more density on the ridge, which is sensitive environmentally.
David, may I ask, was that the public benefit question that seemed to be residing according to the staff report? The board in 2015 found that there was no public benefit to dividing the lot. Would you say that that is part of the same argument?
Yes, but the current board could come down in a different place in the sense that I think there is a benefit to having lot sizes more closely aligned with with the facts on the ground. In other words, this goes back to what Mark was saying. All the other lots on this stretch in this zone are undersized. So the zoning is clearly a little bit out of whack. And there's a public benefit to correcting a misapplication of zoning constraints on this lot, given the development pattern here. So I don't think the board at that time considered that public benefit, and all they considered was the public detriment of the loss of trees.
Okay.
So it's a new conversation if we can get past the res judicata issue. And I sort of feel like it can go either way, and I'd love to hear from other board members how they feel about this development on the ridge issue, which I think was crucial at that time.
Right. We have Jack Taylor, Nathan Foote, and Freddie Perlmutter. Jack?
Yeah, let me look back at the history of this situation, because basically I agree with the common sense comments of both Mark and David. It seems to me that the original zoning was based around the existence of a farm that was a function of a time and a place, and yet evolved into an even larger property, but still placed on a property which was inconsistent with those in the neighborhood. And in other words, the neighborhood, in a sense, redefined as a practical matter this original farm property in such a way that, yes, there are development opportunities. As a practical matter, there is no alternative to being, in some practical ways, not in complete and perfect compliance with zoning, but it's material that we can find a compromise, and a compromise that leads to property, a taxable property, and addition to the land that preserves the natural, the trees, whatever wetland there may still be. It seems to me that it's the only kind of option that makes sense. And under that sense, Jerry, I would want to go back to the definition of res judicata and double check whether the traditional definition used is still applicable to a specific piece of property with specific historical size, shape, and construction.
I think the answer is yes. And I think everything you said, Jack, is a good point, but it's still, we still have that difficulty of res judicata. If this had all been, if that had all been considered in 2015, I think the board legitimately could have approved the subdivision. But given that it didn't, that's the issue we're dealing with. Now, an alternative, by the way, and maybe the sensible alternative, if they don't get legislative relief, is to challenge the zoning that it's arbitrary and capricious, just for the reasons you gave.
That's where I would go, Jerry. I think that we have a situation that if you're right, if this is really truly a problem, then it should be challenged, because as a matter, again, of common sense, this shouldn't be the case. It is something that should be challenged, and it be considered constructive to do so by the community, the neighbors, and certainly the owners of the property today.
Thank you, Jack. Nathan?
Yeah, I just wanted to put a finer point on something that's been coming up. So I don't want to necessarily say that there's two separate things that we need to consider. Obviously, the big one is the res judicata, and the question of substantially different. And this just comes up in the context of that slight zigzag concept, the last concept that they presented. Um, is it substantially different? You can make that argument that it is. What I want to put the fine point on is that yes, it might be different, but we also have to look at the planning side of things and the design side of things. You could have just an extreme example of this. You could have a zigzag going all the way down. Multiple zigzags in the dividing line. Is it substantially different? Probably. But is it a good planning practice? No. And so that's something that to keep in mind, that there's two separate common tracks almost that we want to be aware of.
Yeah, and Nathan, I'm glad you raised that because it's a very good point. Even if the board decided they can get over the res judicata hump, that doesn't mean, okay, everything's fine, it's been approved. You still got to address the design issues, and whether they're entitled to the variance relief. And as part of that, all design considerations, which is what Nathan was saying. So we got to still remember there are two different issues here. And resolving the first one, if the board thinks it could be resolved, they res judicata, just opens the door to the second one. It doesn't resolve the second one.
Okay, Freddie and then Justin.
I have 2 points. One, Jack mentioned the appealing the decision. It's been 10 years. Now, I don't know what the statute of limitations is on something like this, but they might have difficulty at this time. Jerry, that you'd have to find them. I have no idea. And then the other thing is on the flip side, if we're worried about trees, we just, Princeton, I think, did pass the tree ordinance. So that, yes, they're going to have to take down a lot of trees, but they're probably going to have to put up a lot of trees also. Now, they'll be new, they're not the grown trees, et cetera, but there is a quid pro quo on the trees, a possible quid pro quo. And Jerry, I leave it up to you. And I don't even know if this is the time to discuss that, but I don't know what the statute of limitations is for something like this.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Just,
I mean,
just
I think they could come back in. I don't know that there's any statute of limitations on the res judicata issue, but it's a good question. I don't think there is, but certainly the contrary could be the case. And there's really very little case law on this.
Justin, you had your hand up. Did you take it down?
No, Chairman. I still have it up.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I just want to touch on something that Jack mentioned as well. And again, this might be something more for that second part that Jerry and Nathan just described, not necessarily the res judicata part, but once we get to variances potentially down the line. So Jack mentioned something about the zoning potentially being based on the farm. And I actually don't think that's the case. Because as was described before, this parcel is about 2.5 acres. So logically, if it was based on that, the minimum lot size would be about 2.5 or something just under it. Whereas it's the 1.5 acres that was described earlier. And then as was described by Mr. Kennedy, the lots to the south of this, which probably predate zoning, are all under that 1.5 acres. Some are 1, some are 1.2, some are a little under. And then the Stewart Road East ones that are directly across, also in the R2, those are about almost uniformly 2/3 of an acre that I believe were part of a cluster development. So I say all of that to say, I don't know why the minimum lot size is what it is. There does not appear to be a true logic here for what it is. I don't know if we could even necessarily go back and try to figure out what that was, any more so than, when these lots were being divvied up into zones 50, 60 years ago. Someone said 1.5 is good for R2, and these ones are going to be in the R2. So that is the what I think is the likeliest case, rather than any sort of logic on where we got that 1.5 number.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councilman Cohen.
Yeah, I think this is actually just seconding what Justin just said, but I know that I have heard a lot of older Princetonians like having non-conforming lots because they like having a say in what their neighbors are allowed to do on their property. And so having lots of undersized lots means lots of variances, lots of notice to neighbors, lots of opportunity to stick your nose into other people's business. So, you know, I'm not saying the 1.5 acres doesn't make sense some places in town, but I think when placing neighborhoods into zones, there was a lot less concern about trying to make sure that most of the lots were conforming when placing lots into various zones back in the day. But I'm pretty sure these lots all preceded the zoning.
Okay, thank you for that. Before we go on, Mr. Chumalik, have you finished your presentation? I think you still have one more slide to go.
I'm not sure, Brian. I think we were pretty close to
We
being
were
done there, right?
I'll say we didn't actually get to this slide that I believe Mr. Lesko and Councilman Cohen, a few of other commenters kind of made this point. You know, this
Right.
slide shows the non-conforming R2 lots that surround what we're talking about, and I don't think we need to belabor that point any further. I'll note, we didn't really, because of the res judicata issue and focusing on what is factually different, I think in the board's mind, as well as generally what elements of the revised proposals you like, we didn't, and it's a concept, we didn't get into our planning testimony. There's a lot of great feedback we got that will guide us there. Mr. Malik is a planner, but we're not going to jump into that. And honestly, looking back into the minutes and resolution from 2015, it didn't look like that really happened. There have been some changes, certainly in Princeton since then. And to Councilman Cohen's point, not just the board, but ultimately the underlying pieces of things. While this zoning hasn't changed, some other things have. And we're not going to dwell on that this evening. But as part of our planning testimony, should one of the things advance, we would certainly do that. And there's a lot of pieces of not just this neighborhood and this unique property that we believe that the updated plan will certainly advance. And, there was a note about the lack of public benefit. It seemed to us that there wasn't really much of a argument made there, to be honest with you, in 2015. And we certainly have a lot of information to do that now. So I just want to give the board some confidence that we wouldn't be leaving you out to dry there. We just haven't shown you that part of the work because it's concept, but certainly would be doing an elaborate planning testimony as part of that. And again, I'll just say I very much appreciate the feedback on what types of things people may be comfortable or think to be different enough to even think about on the res judicata issue, as well as the substantive pieces about what parts of a revised plan seem to make sense, and very appreciative of that. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that, but we're not quite done yet. We're going to open up for public comment and see. We only have 3 members of the public available, but if anyone wants to make a comment, please raise your hand at this time and we'll bring you over. Not seeing anybody raise their hand, so we will go back for final deliberation, I guess, on if there's any other comments from the board. I think we've given this a pretty thorough go over. There's a lot to think about on Mr. Kennedy and the dissenters part. But does anybody have any additional comments? Okay. Not seeing any. Mr. Kennedy, thank you very much. For Mr. and Mrs. DeSantis, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it, and we'll see how we move forward with this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very much appreciated the feedback. I think we got more than we expected, and much appreciated that we got that this evening. And again, to your professionals as well for your help throughout this process. Much appreciated. Wish every other town would allow the kind of discretion and feedback that you guys give, and we are very appreciative of it.
Well, thank you very much for that. Okay. With no other business on the agenda, David, would you like to?
I would move to adjourn.
Can I ask a question
Oh, absolutely.
before we part ways? Just because I do appreciate also the various comments, although I don't know that we have a clear consensus of how to move forward. We can talk about that with our team. But I am curious about just from a procedural point of view, and I'm not an attorney either. Um, if we were to pick one of these three alternatives and um, make a formal application with that. Is it, am I correct in understanding that that's when this res judicata determination would be made and that it would be made by a vote from the board? Or is this how exactly does that, if you know, how exactly does that happen?
It would be made, go ahead,
Jerry,
Steve.
go ahead, please.
It would be made by the board, by a vote of the board.
And it would be made
As part of the
pursuant to this sort of a discussion and review of a specific plan at that time.
Specific plan, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Is that,
There's no other way to do this that
So
addresses that issue independently in some way.
Pallavi, you have a
I
comment?
guess, I just want to clarify, and this is, I guess, a question for Jerry again. So if and when the applicant comes before the board with an application for subdivision on the same lot, is it the board that will then determine whether they're seeking the same relief they sought before or whether they're seeking different relief, right? So it would be the board's decision.
Our decision.
yeah, and it's not just the same relief. In fact, if it's more if the board could find it's more non-conforming, but it's in any event, it is the board's decision.
Let me ask, I think the question a slightly different way, or Chuck's question a slightly different way, is there any provision in our land use code that would allow severing the question of res judicata from a fully engineered site plan submission? So, obviously there's a lot of expense in engineering drawings and fully vetting the design. I'm not sure all of that information is needed by the board to make the res judicata decision. And the question is, could there be some kind of I know I had an issue at a certain point where I went to the zoning board for an interpretation of zoning ordinance. It wasn't for approval. It was actually for an interpretation. And this feels a little bit similar to that. Like, is there something they could apply for? I see you starting to answer, Jerry.
Yeah, I actually had the same thought after Mr. DeSanto raised that question. Is there something short of kind of a full-blown application that we could do? I mean, it's obviously the idea of going to the zoning board for interpretation, that's an entirely different category.
Right, but
I want to at least talk to Justin, to Nathan, and to the rest of the staff to see whether we think that we can make an application. It would be a subdivision application, but kind of in two stages, where if the board decided that it passed the res judicata test, then we ask for the full-blown, all the engineered material and go from there. And we could talk about that now, Justin and Nathan, if you want, although maybe it's best just if we talk among ourselves.
Yeah. My initial thought is that we don't have a mechanism to do that. The closest thing that I could see as a kind of similar thing is, when the zoning board hears a bifurcated application of a use variance, can we get this use? Yes. All right, now we're going to bring the site plan in. I don't believe there's that same mechanism for this.
No, no, there isn't. I mean, if we did it,
Yeah.
we'd have to create it.
Yes.
Well, I know
and
that we have, or at least we used to have preliminary and final site plans, which usually came together, but could come separately. I don't know if there's such a thing as a preliminary and final subdivision that.
No, this would just be filed as a minor subdivision because of the number of lots created. And I'm trying to like think it through, and we could discuss because I don't want to throw cold water on this. If there is a way forward, it sounds like a good idea. And it's honestly this concept review, I think, is the closest thing we have to that. And I hope the applicant got at least enough of the thought, or to put a different way, if this was 5 minutes long and you all said, we're not doing any of this, I think they would have heard that. Obviously, they didn't necessarily hear it the other way either of, please come to us with, slide 8 and, you'll be able, basically the straw poll thing. They didn't hear that either. So we can look into it. But again, just thinking off the top of my head, it almost seems like any mechanism that we might be able to do could almost be more time, effort, and money than it's worth to get to the final form than just a traditional minor subdivision application. So, like I said, we will discuss this amongst ourselves, and we'll see if we could think of anything. We don't come across this issue too often in Princeton. I'll certainly, I know Mr. Bridger's been in attendance. He has the institutional knowledge at this point. So we will pick his brain too to see if he could think of anything.
If I could just add, and I'm happy to circle back, and I think that is the right way to do this offline, and I really appreciate the thinking. What it does sound like, while there's not that mechanism for bifurcation, potentially some conditional submission waivers might allow that initial subdivision question to get to the board, and then the waivers be cured essentially prior to a second hearing. So we might be able to look at something like that where the staff or board could consider submission waivers so that you have only enough that's necessary to make that initial decision, and then condition continuing the application on the formal other deliverables that would normally be associated with the subdivision. But again, let me just appreciate the thinking on this. Again, that's something we don't see in other towns, and I'll very much appreciate assisting if I can offline with something like that, because it certainly would help solve this problem.
Certainly. Yeah, we're very happy to think here, to the point that we often overthink.
Well,
I think that's a great
I hope
note on which to move to adjourn.
Yes, I said I hope that gives you somewhat of a way forward in thinking about this, and we'll all be thinking about this long and hard. So with no further ado, David, you already made your motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Thank you, Alvin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very much. Have a good
Thank you.
evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you.